Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Welcome back to Comerit's What's Up Enterprise podcast, where we explore the latest technology trends across industries with the leading experts from around the globe. So, first, I want to welcome back Barry and welcome a new individual to this podcast, Joe Darlak. How's it going,
Hi,
guys?
everyone.
Hello.
So, hey, like I've told many of the other invitees, people that join on here, it's always nice just to have a conversation about what's really going on out there in the world of enterprise applications, data transformations, analytics, and this so forth. So that's what I hope we'll get a chance to do because we actually all know each other fairly well. And there's a lot of stuff happening out in our space that for me, a lot of what you guys know is going to be very new. Lots of new terminologies. Even though I'm trying like crazy to keep up, it's still very, very new terminologies. Every day, people are changing. We went from DWC to DataSphere, and those type of changes happen, and then you're behind after just a few days. So, what I'm hoping we'll get through today, I don't know how much of it we'll actually get to, but if we don't, I would love to have you back, Joe. So I'm inviting you right now, early on this call. So you had suggested, and I thought this was a great way to go, is to talk about SAP on Google Cloud. That's a fantastic area to start. Looking at HANA versus BigQuery. A lot of customers I've talked to have exactly that question, and then um, something that really was a question for me was uh, can you tell me more about how Cortex fits into this big picture? And then ultimately, some of the stuff that when I'm out there having conversations with clients, ultimately always end up to, well, what does this mean for us in terms of a generative AI strategy? Like why do I have to do this to get there? Or, you know, what's next for enterprise is a great topic. So there's quite a bit of stuff. And if we get the chance, we'll get to Google Cloud Data Hub and the Analytics Hub, but we'll just see how it goes when we go into this conversation. So first, as we get started, could I get you to just give a quick intro, what your background's all about and what you do over there at Google?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, David and Barry. It's good to see you guys again. My background is I got involved with SAP back when I was consulting at Price Waterhouse in the late '90s. Went through basis training, and when I came out, I landed on the first BW implementation in North America, um, and spent my career consulting until about 4 years ago. But while I was consulting, I was implementing SAP BW and SAP Analytics Solutions at Fortune 100 customers around the world. And then as BW started to migrate to HANA, started doing those kind of projects, and then native HANA data warehouse applications as well. And then that brought me to Google when Google was building up their SAP practice about 4.5 years ago, and have been here working as a solution manager for SAP on Google Cloud, and now for the past year on Cortex Framework, which we'll talk about
Awesome.
a little bit later in the segment.
I think it'd be also interesting. You both you and Barry have worked together, and you have quite a
Yeah.
interesting history as well. And Barry or either of you would love to hear about that before
Yeah,
we get into the details.
Barry was on that first BW project.
Are you
Right.
serious? So
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I heard some
Yeah.
crazy story like that, and that's
Yeah.
amazing.
And we worked on many of the same projects together along the way, and careers have really kind of mirrored each other up until the point where Joe joined Google. I didn't make that leap, but so we have a lot of things to catch
yeah.
up on.
A a ton, yeah. So that's awesome. Well, yeah. I mean, let's get right into it. I know. So can we talk a little bit about SAP on Google Cloud?
Yeah, SAP on Google Cloud is one of my favorite topics. I mean, I think um, we got into kind of the SAP hosting business, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. We were on Google Cloud. We were a bit behind some of the other hyperscalers, but we really came a very long way in a very short amount of time, and we've just got some amazing capabilities, I think, that are really pretty impressive. There was a blog that was just released by SAP, as a matter of fact, that talks about our scale out architecture for large HANA systems, um, and and we've got customers that have essentially self-certified uh, 12 terabyte nodes times eight, so
Wow.
96 terabyte systems on Google Cloud, and that's pretty impressive. And it was a co-innovation project that we did alongside with SAP. Recently, you may also be aware of our updated partnership announcement with SAP regarding BTP, or the new DataSphere, the newly minted DataSphere that's being released. SAP is actually going to release in Q4 of this year a a connector that will um, allow data movement out of DataSphere into Google BigQuery at scale. And this to me represents a paradigm shift of SAP kind of recognizing that they, you know, they are no longer going to kind of own the big data space, or no longer maybe recognize that customers have, 90-95% of their data outside of SAP, and they're not going to bring all of that non-SAP data into SAP platforms. So there has to be sharing of data between the two
Right.
for customers to ultimately be able to deliver and innovate in the ways that they want to kind of achieve their business outcomes. And so this is kind of like I said, a paradigm shift kind of in thinking, um, to be able to allow just uh, data movement at scale out of SAP in real time into BigQuery, and then vice versa. Data would be going back and forth depending on what the customer's use cases are. But that way, they'll be able to, once they land that data into BigQuery, they'll be able to leverage uh, Google technologies like BigQuery machine learning, or Vertex AI, and build their own AI models and machine learning models, and train them and tune them continuously with data in large volumes of it. So we're looking forward to that.
Can you tell me, and Barry, feel free to jump in anytime
Sure.
you ask. What can you give us a couple of use cases, like why, how they could how businesses would take advantage of this, and what are people thinking?
So what we see a lot of interest in, and this is where kind of Cortex fits in. So let me kind of delve into that for a minute. Uh, Cortex framework on Google Cloud is eh, essentially, in a nutshell, we're delivering a set of predefined data models, right? And these are accelerators. These are to help our customers get started, right? So we're kind of taking care of all the basics. So we're building data models for kind of SAP operational reporting that's got currency conversion and stuff like that. We started with SAP. We moved to Salesforce, and now we're building models for marketing content like Google Ads and uh, CM 360 and TikTok, and so forth. And soon we'll be launching Oracle data sets as well for Oracle ERP, Oracle EBS, NetSuite, and so forth. So really, it's to provide kind of a foundational layer of data models, so that you can pretty much deploy them within a day, connect them to your source systems using um, your preferred integration tool, or Google tools, or partner tools,
Right.
um, and land the data in, get reporting going, and then start to combine these data. sets from Salesforce, SAP, Oracle, TikTok, whatever it may be, and build AI models on top. And we've got some really neat use cases that we're going to announce at Next, which is later this month in San
Wow.
Francisco, August 29th, I think, is when it starts. But we've got some really cool concepts and demos that we're going to be sharing with customers at Next. So register for the conference. You can join online virtually, or you can show up in Moscone Center in downtown San Francisco.
It's going to be here in my backyard, so I will be there in person. So yeah, that's super exciting. I mean, it's funny
Yeah.
because growing up in SAP world, but also taking part of the social media, phenomenon, and you hearing TikTok and data and analytics and SAP in the conversation, like what? So that's gonna have some interesting follow-up questions, I'm sure. If we were live right now, there would be people asking that question. Wait, what's going on with TikTok? But go ahead.
So just to kind of shed a little bit more light on that. So TikTok, a lot of companies advertise on TikTok, right?
Hmm.
They advertise on Google. They advertise in other social media sites. So generally these sites, they have APIs where you can pull the data on your ads, and then you have your sales revenue, whether it be from SAP or from Oracle, right, by product. And you can use large language models, Vertex AI to do, uh, image sensing, or, video to image to text kind of translations, and use the large language models to try and map uh, advertising to product
That's
sales, right?
incredible.
And then in a much more real time
Right.
reporting application, you can determine, okay, what advertisements are driving increased revenue and which ones aren't, and you can you know maybe get a more fine-tuned, shorter time frame between you know getting results on advertising, finding them out more in real time as it affects your bottom line product, revenue. And that seems to be very interesting to a lot of our customers.
Yeah, no
So
doubt. I
that's
mean,
just the art of the possibility.
I
Yeah.
because I mean, well, at least for me, I'm admitting something. I do spend a lot of time on Twitter. It's funny, as I read an article that Twitter actually uses GCP to help proliferate their data, and I was like, "Whoa, this is very interesting." So I started digging a little bit deeper there. But yeah, I mean, the art of possible is crazy when you think about it, because we spend so much time as a nation and globally interfacing with social media. And so if you could get real-time metrics to, you know, impact the bottom line, I would assume that this is probably interesting to most organizations. So, but so this does lead me to a couple of questions. Um, Obviously, we all work together in the HANA space, and back in that time, everything was about HANA, the speed that's going on there. And now we have BigQuery. So I'd like if you can just talk a little bit about the difference between HANA and BigQuery.
Right. So HANA is an in-memory database, right? Super fast. Uh, it's a database. It's great for structured data, and specifically integrates very well with SAP applications because it's got a lot of embedded SAP functionality um, built into the database, right? So um, if performance of reporting on large data sets is important, and response time and very quick response time, HANA is a fantastic, super performant database with which to kind of build those kind of applications. Um, but there's certain scale limitations with HANA. I just mentioned that we've got customers who have self-certified up to 96 terabytes
Right.
scale out, but our largest virtual machines are 12 terabytes today. We are next year we'll be launching larger virtual machines, but today 12 terabytes is the largest that we have, and of course you can do kind of a bare metal solution up to 24 terabytes, but again that's also kind of our limit today. Next year we'll be launching something larger, but you have limits in scale up and then scale out. uh, it becomes more challenging because data then needs to be transferred between nodes and so forth. And so co-location becomes important, and then management of the system, administration becomes more and more important. uh, BigQuery, on the other hand, is not in memory, um, but it's serverless. It's a managed service that our customers don't have to worry about the architecture, the infrastructure. Um, and in the way BigQuery works is it scales by spreading compute over, you know, many machines, right? So you get a very fast response time, um, for specific types of queries that can be super parallelized, and because you've got kind of almost um, unlimited workload capability, and the storage is very cheap for BigQuery. So you can load. We've got customers who literally load petabytes of data into BigQuery, and then can join and combine uh, that data, across different lines of businesses, across you know, different um, different organizations, even, and across companies as well. And we'll talk about that with Analytics Hub, which is kind of the sharing of it's a data exchange. It's where one company, one customer can publish a data set to share with either other partners in their industry, with so you could share travel data, media data, credit bureaus can share data, logistics companies can share data. You also have access to Google data like Google Trends and web analytics, and you've got healthcare data like um, COVID-19 data, all that stuff. You've
Right.
got census data, you've got GDELT, you've got ESG book, there's cryptocurrency data, there's US Forest Service data, there's campaign finance data, there's crime data. So there's all these other public and data sets that if you wanted to kind of combine, or query that or combine it with some of your own data, you can do that. But companies can also monetize their their data if they have something that they think is valuable to sell by putting it onto the exchange and charging for that access. So that's
Wow.
what Analytics Hub is. It's an exchange that allows you to share your data either privately or publicly,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
you can restrict who
Who's
who gets to
accessing it?
see it, right? You restrict who, and they're just looking at a read. The subscribers are only going to see a read-only opaque access, but it's live data, right? It's not like you publish it once a month. It's they see what you see, um, but they only see what you allow them to see.
Barry, I know you probably have quite a few thoughts on just the bit we've touched upon. So,
Yeah, I mean that you one can argue that's one of the main reasons why you want your data in the cloud is because there's so many other rich data sources that are already there in the cloud, and that you've been able to have access to that hub and bring in some of that information to enrich your Salesforce data or your SAP data. Use some machine learning algorithms on that and expose that to either your analytics users or decision makers that are trying to do things directly, back in SAP, which is kind of the intelligent enterprise value proposition. So, having this bi-directional capability that's supported by SAP to bring data, into the Google platform, I think is going to be a tremendous capability for sure.
And something that you touched upon though is like there might be certain data that organizations want the public to be able to access and query, right? So they have that ability. It's like, hey, this we want the public to like sample this data along with theirs or our vendors or whatever. And then in other cases, like it just just this is our internal use only, and they'll have that capability to control that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, and so even within an organization, you can have one department share data internally with another department. Nobody publicly has access to this, no other companies, right? But you can use the Analytics Hub as a way to share data with other organizations and kind of limit and restrict what they get to see. Um, and likewise, then you can take it from there internally. You can privately share it with maybe a joint venture or a partner if you've got some data that needs to be shared, or again, like within an industry trade group, or then make it publicly available where anybody who wants it can sign up for it. And the beauty of it is they get to query the data, they can see it, but they don't need to store it, right? They're not they're not going to be
They don't
kind
have
of
to have a repository on their side
yeah.
for it,
You don't
right?
need to replicate the data
Yeah.
and duplicate that data set, right? So
Yeah.
they see it. They see exactly what you have, available, and if you choose not to make it available, then they no longer have access to it. So it's kind of an interesting concept, and I think you'll see a lot more data sets being published and
Publicly
shared
shared.
that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think. I mean, and every day we're expanding the data models and the algorithms based upon data that we can consume, right? So the more this becomes an ability for people to share publicly, what we're doing in terms of generative AI type stuff, LLMs, like we're not even scratching the surface. I saw some studies about different things that people could do. They're not features and functions yet, but it's all the limitation is really all about the data models. So Barry, do you have any other
Yeah,
questions
I
for
do
me?
have a question in this pertaining to the Cortex framework. So I know you currently have content that's already available for Salesforce and with a lot of the SAP, some of the core tables they're there in most instances, and it's easy to get started there. But in terms of the vision of of the product, do you envision the ability to extend those data models so that they more easily integrate with each other in order to assist with some sort of master data integration with certain entities that are kind of overlapping with each other, or is that really left up to the customer to help sort out?
It's actually a great question. So, um, let me go back to the kind of the beginning. First of all, Cortex isn't a product. We don't sell it. It's
Right.
free, right? So it's open source. It's available on GitHub. Customers can download it and deploy it in a couple hours in their BigQuery environment. They can deploy it with sample data if they just want to kind of like test it out and take a look at it,
Right.
or you can deploy it, with no sample data and then connect it to your data sources and populate the data right away. It is an accelerator, and it saves months of effort for most customers who are just getting started, right?
Right.
And so the idea is, maybe a lot of the listeners here are kind of familiar with SAP business content for BW. All right, and SAP had a ton of business content for kind of all of their modules. Um, our intent is not to build a data model for every every potential area. Um,
Right.
of reporting in every source that we pull. We want to, you know, we want to teach our customers how to fish, right? So
Right.
we are we are showing them how to do this, and then it's very easy for them to replicate it for other data sources, and We want to make sure that certain functions like hierarchy flattening and calendar month to fiscal period mapping and currency conversion and unit to measure conversion, that those kind of basic functionalities are available, and then they can embed those into other models, and they know it works because it's a portable bit of code, and everything's coded in SQL and Python within Cortex, so it's very easy to kind of maintain and so forth. Now, in terms of combining data sets, we generally launch our accelerators, which are the data models that customers can then download and deploy. And then we showcase concepts. Concept would be, all right, if you join this data set to this data set, right, in this particular way, here's the art of the possible. This is what you could do, and this is what it might look like. But when it comes to joining data sets, different customers may have different requirements. And and we don't want to kind of deliver something that works for a small percentage of customers, but not for most customers. If you remember from BW business content, there were extractors, which were used by almost all customers, right?
Right.
Then they would provide data models, which would be extended, like you would activate it and then copy it or extend it, right? So you would use that as kind of like a template, which is just like what we deliver.
Right.
But then the queries and so forth that were part of the business content, nobody ever used those.
Right. Yeah. The further you away you got from just the very fundamental aspects of the data model, the more unique it is going to be for each business. And I can only imagine that's probably an exponential situation when you've got two different systems that are labeled the same, that are products from the same company, like SAP and Salesforce, but their deployments are unique, even within that company. So try to, envisioning sort of like Uber data model that would possibly fit all, combinations of SAP and Salesforce is kind of would be, although it's nice to think about that from a value proposition, that'd be great, but I just don't think it doesn't seem to be like a feasible thing to even approach.
You're exactly right, Barry. The further away you get from the source of the data, the more unique and customized your use cases are, and so we don't want to spend a lot of time building things that less people, less of our customers are going to find valuable. So we want to focus on kind of a high impact areas. So as we showcase these concepts and demo things like we will be doing at Next later this month, if we do get a lot of demand for something like that, and there's kind of like an industry standard approach that we can apply, we'll build something that integrates those and makes it easy for customers to adapt. But especially when we talk about applying machine learning models or generative AI, as we embed generative AI into our solutions and into Cortex and so forth. I mean, there's so many opportunities for just the way that this technology is changing the way we work on a daily basis. I mean, generative AI is going to have a massive impact on all industries. But where we see it most impactful is in the sales and marketing space across these industries, right? And so, today what you can do, I mean, imagine like if you're an executive at a company, you may not know the reports where the data is, but you have somebody who runs those reports for you and provides you the data, analysts that provide you the information, but you have maybe limited availability to go out and find that information on your own just because you're maybe not familiar with it. But imagine you could just go into a kind of a conversational interface and say, hey, who are my top 3 to 5 customers? And it responds back, your top 3 to 5 customers are here. Here's the dashboard where I found this information. Here you can click and look, and drill into this source. And you can say, all right, I need to order some more supplies, which which supplier should I choose based on your previous preferences, Mr. Caspillo or Mr. Ellis, right? I know that
Yeah.
you you are more focused on reducing emissions and choosing sustainable suppliers, and so you pay, maybe 1% more from this supplier, but you'll have 25% less emissions because of their transportation routes, or so. Imagine something
Right.
like that, where
That's
you can
pretty
really kind of
crazy.
you can make your sustainable choices at the moment that you're buying, rather than vetting your vendors on an annual basis. So I think the opportunities, the more data that you can combine, um, the opportunities are just endless, and they're pretty amazing, and we're really excited about it. And one thing that I do want to point out about running your machine learning models in AI on Google Cloud is we really protect our customers' IP. We don't use any of their data to train our models, right? So
Mm.
you can use the algorithms and the models that we've built um, inside your own organizational space on Google Cloud, and your data is not accessible by Google or by Google Cloud processes. So you're just reading our models and executing our models against your own data, and everything stays within your corporate network, within your firewall. So it's
Yeah, I that's a great point Joe, that you brought up, because a few months ago, I think everyone was aware that there was information. I mean, obviously, this generative AI LLM process is a really big opportunity, and there were big organizations that were using it to even just internally create slideshows, presentations, you know, doing a little bit of discovery, and that their data, just by using the tools that were out there, went viral, and it was intellectual property type data,
Mhm.
and it made news. I mean, it definitely put a damper on. Like immediately after, I saw notices from many enterprise organizations say no more
Yeah.
access.
Yeah. Please do not do this.
Please
Yeah.
do not. So I that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's obviously, I mean, one of the highest thoughts on most people's minds is exactly that. It's like, well, I've been told, these type of algorithms and things we want to do, they're great, but there's a inherent issue, right? But if you're saying that, no, this is something we knew exactly that we needed to deal with, that really, I think, opens a door, because I believe where this is headed, and I want to definitely hear both of your opinions on this. Is this type of technology allows these very creative executives to do, like, I'm sure they go home and they're supposed to be doing other things other than work, but their wheels are turned. It's like, hey, what if we focus on this? They could have that conversation and have all this type of data to even run a scenario. That's where I think you'll see lots of creativity, the possibilities of the need for, like I was mentioning with Twitter. I heard that they obviously are running petabytes of data to do data mining and exploration. But yeah, I'd love to hear your guys. We talked about what the future, what does the future hold. I know we're going to get to see a lot of this at the show, so I'll leave some of that for that. But yeah, we started to talk a little bit about Data Hub and Analytics Hub. I don't know if we want to end with that, but I'll let you guys go ahead, and we'll
Well,
start to wrap up.
I just wanted to make an observation that I think there's been a desire to have kind of a natural language processing interface with in a conversation with your data, in a kind of a ask a question, and really a very in a natural way, and then it give you a response back, and then you're kind of starting a dialogue. And I think the technologies up to now, at least up until this year, have been a kind of very heavily dependent upon uh, that algorithm, or that program understanding what your data what data is available to draw upon, So there has to be some sort of mapping or exposure of that to that algorithm. And I think that's still kind of a challenge, but at least the way that that Bard and ChatGPT, just how sophisticated the interface is in terms of conversationality, is really kind of opened everyone's eyes as to really what is possible. So if we could curate our own corporate data sources that and define them and to a sort of a resource like that, then that kind of real understanding of what's really happening and making some recommendations on actions to take or whatever, that level of engagement with a potential decision maker is really compelling.
Yeah, and so you see, I think what I'm thinking is um, maybe a shift from business intelligence to decision intelligence.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's
So,
a new
right.
one.
Um, and really, it kind of as I just kind of like talked about the one example about trying to source something from a supplier, whether or not you're going to um, uh, ask for a recommendation from your AI chatbot or whatever it is. But I think the opportunities there, are certainly, initially accelerating your research and discovery across both structured and unstructured data. Right, we see that today with ChatGPT and with Bard, but being that those are public models, right, anything you put in there becomes public record. So um, you know, you definitely don't want to put any intellectual property
Right.
uh, in there, and that's where the exposure comes, David, as you were mentioning. But other very low hanging fruit are to improve customer service with conversational AI, right? So every website now has a chat bot, and so as those chat bots can be more sophisticated, because these models are very sophisticated. These large language models actually use multiple kind of algorithms stacked on top of each other, and they're multimodal, so they remember what you've asked previously, right? So you can really kind of have a conversation. It takes an enormous amount of compute to be able to process these kind of things at the scale that we've seen, but that compute is somewhat ever increasing, right? And somewhat seems to be somewhat unlimited, and so there's the capabilities are becoming more and more sophisticated. Um, and but I think where we're going to be relatively soon is companies are going to build, tune, and deploy their own foundational AI models and embed their own IP into those models, and they're going to do it faster and at a speed that we haven't seen, and they'll develop specialties or you know uh, a strategic edge because of the models that they built and their abilities to kind of meet customer uh, demand or solve customer problems. So,
Yeah, we talk about intelligent enterprise, and like all of our work is helping organizations, put together data sets, and we're just giving them with the tools that they currently have. They're built within their SAP systems, but now we're really talking about this next level, which you mentioned, is this intelligent decision. Like, when you boil it down to, this is what it comes down to. It's like, okay, I want to make decisions, but based upon our specific, um, maybe custom set of rules and instructions, right? These are company based policies, rules, and instructions. And I want to make sure that, like, when we uh, query or ask a question of all the data available to us, that it's based upon our company profile policies and what have you. So yeah, I think that's the next level. Gosh, I mean, there's so many paths I want to take this call. I think we're a bit out of time. I appreciate you guys going over. Barry, do you have any other questions before? to get
No,
off?
because if I do ask, it will be on another
It'll
10
open
minutes.
another. Yeah. So can I ask you, Joe, to would you be willing to do this again? This was fun. It's great seeing you, and man, just a ton of information that you shared, and it was great having you both on here. Just have an open conversation. I mean, there's so much where we could just talk about. Hey, this is what we're doing over here, and I'd like to do that on our next one. I know there was a lot of topics to cover today, but thank you
Yeah,
very
no,
much.
I'd love to come back. This was a lot of fun, and it's great to see you guys and great to catch up. So thanks for
Awesome.
having me.